Hey, welcome back to the channel and the read-along book club of Steven Erikson's Gardens of the Moon. This episode is different in a couple of ways. The first way is that I'm covering the entirety of Book 4 Assassins. The second is, wait for it, I'm stopping here. Unless I get an overwhelming response that I should continue, I should see it through. I'm going to make a different video on why I'm quitting this book. But the short of it is, this is plot over character. I read books to get in the heads of characters, to witness their struggles, to struggle along beside them, feel their traumas, and that's just not here. And this book, actually, Book 4 Assassins, really cemented the fact in my mind that this series, or at least this book anyway, is much more plot, very, very thin character. But I still owe you guys a video, so let us get into it. And I figured out a little way, it's kind of funny that I'm ending this here, to do a little bit of a screen share because I took notes as I was reading along. But before I get to that, I would like to let you know that we are starting a new read-along book club. You need to join my Discord, though, to submit a request to be voted on YouTube in a poll and a video, which I'll create after I get all of the submissions. So if you're not on the Discord and you'd like to throw your hat in the ring to maybe get your book selected that we will read along together, check out the link in the description. It's completely free to join. And if you don't want to, that's okay too. You can still vote on the book here on YouTube. And I know I had a massive uptick of subscribers when I started this series because, you know, it's a very well-loved series. And if you unsubscribe, totally understand, but I hope you stick around because I will continue to talk about books. I will continue to review books, do read-alongs with books. However, it will be in multiple genres. So if you are strictly a fantasy person, maybe this is not for you, but I highly encourage everyone to read broadly because there is so much good stuff out there. I think when you stick to one genre and one genre alone, you are severely shortchanging yourself. But anyway, let us get on with Book 4 Assassins. We begin with another passage. I dreamed a coin with shifting face, so many youthful visages, so many costly dreams, and it rolled and rang round the gilded rim of a chalice made for gems. Life of Dreams. Abaris the Hag. So chapter 11 begins with, the night held close as I wandered, my spirit unfooted, to either earth or stone, unraveled from tree, undriven by iron nail, but like the night itself, a thing of air, stripped of light. So I came upon them, those reasons who cut and carved, stone in the night, sighting by stars and battered hand. What of the sun? Asked I of them. Is not its cloak of revelation the warmth of reason in your shaping? And one among them answered, no soul can withstand the sun's bones of light. And reason dims when darkness falls, so we shape barrows in the night. For you and your kin, forgive my interruption then, said I. The dead never interrupt, said the mason. They but arrive. Pauper Stone, Darujistan. So now we are getting into chapter 11. So this is a way for me to get around copyright, I hope. Well, we shall see. So we begin with Krupa. He's at the fire where he met the elder god in the barren landscape, and he notices strange lights on the horizon, and he says to himself, such is the life in this world, Krupa wonders. Has you traveled back then to this very beginning of things? And he hears a deep voice that says, you have. I am Pran Cole of Canning Toll's clan, among the Crone clan. That's a lot of syllables. Pran stepped closer and crouched before the fire. I am also the white fox, Krupa, wise in the ways of ice. He glanced at Krupa and smiled. Must not be. We are the Tlan, but soon the gathering comes, and so shall be voiced the right of Emas and the choosing of the bonecasters. And then shall come the sundering of flesh of time itself, with the gathering shall be born of Tlan Emas and the first empire. Why, Krupa wonders, is he here? Pran Cole shrugged. I have come, for I have been called, by whom I know not. Perhaps it is the same with you. But Krupa is dreaming. This is Krupa's dream. That I am honored, Pran straightened. One of your time comes. Perhaps this one possesses the answers we seek. And then we see there's a woman approaches, and here's the description we get. The woman who approached was perhaps middle-aged, heavy with child. Her dark, round face bore features similar to Pran Cole's, though less pronounced. Fear shone in her eyes, yet there was a grim determination about her as well. She reached the fire and eyed the two men, most of her attention drawing to Pran Cole. Tlan, she said, the Tlan Warren of the Emas of our time has birthed a child in a confluence of sorceries. Its soul wanders lost. Its flesh is an abomination. A shifting must take place. She turned to Krupa and swept back the thick woven robe she wore, revealing her swelled stomach. The bare, stretched skin had been recently traced in a tattoo. The image was that of a white-haired fox. The elder god walks again, risen from blood spilled on consecrated stone. Cruel came in answer to the child's need and now aids us in our quest. He apologizes to you, Krupa, for using the world within your dream. But no younger god can influence this place. Somehow you have made your soul immune to them. And then these two, they task Krupa with helping this new child. And we know who this person is, and I'm going to say it right now. I totally called it last video. Death is not death in this book, and it's immensely frustrating to me. She strides two worlds, the Rivi said. Cruel guides her now into yours. She is frightened still. It falls to you, Krupa, to welcome her. And Krupa wanders and finds a mysterious figure who is Tattersail. Tattersail. Krupa tells Cruel about Murillo and Rallick about righting an old wrong and that the coin bearer is protected, being Crocus. And then Cruel mentions Lorn and Tool are on the way, the adjunct. The Rivi woman is ready to give birth to the new Tattersail. So, yeah. That's what I said before, right? There's no stakes here. Somebody dies and somebody's reborn, or somebody's protected from the god of death because apparently he named his sword Chance, and that's enough, right? That's enough to be the chosen one. So I don't know, guys. This is what I'm talking about plot over character, right? It seemed as though Erikson had a really interesting plot outlined, and he forgot to inject interesting characters. With the exception of one, Whiskey Jack is still my favorite character. I feel like Erikson's actually giving us someone to care about in that regard. And also, a while back, we had a very short chapter from a throwaway character, the messenger, who was contemplating life and his youth, and before he trashed the message he was about to deliver. And it's funny because I can see that Erikson has the chops to create character. It's just unfortunate that he doesn't do it with the main players in the story. But anyway, we are moving on to scene 2. This is Krupa is outside Baruch's door contemplating the conversation they had about Crocus. It makes a little joke about his wax cantrip and the coin and how Upon's power is waxing. I like that little aside there. I think that was good from Krupa. Outside, he gets hit with some kind of mental sorcery. He notices men on the with strange accents but not speaking in Daru, who are the bridge burners. We end in scene 3. Now, what threw me off here, and you guys can correct me in the comments, but I remember when we were talking about Baruch and he spilled the ink, right? The red ink on the map, and he noticed the road construction. But that was a long time ago, and now we're back there, I think. I think this is the same timeline, but there was no real indication of what was going on. It seemed like everything was moving forward in a linear fashion, but it seemed as though we are going back in time to link the bridge burners and the rest of the people who are heading from Pale to Darujhistan to that previous time period, I guess. Anyway, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong. But the bridge burners, they are feigning riding a cart while they study a map and make plans. And this is where I said, does that mean he's going back when Baruch noticed the street construction a few chapters ago? And I think so. It makes sense because they noticed later on that he has red hands. So then Sari sees Krupa and tells Whiskey Jack he is the one of some significance. And Whiskey Jack notices Sari wince, and he asks if Krupa is a seer. And this, him saying seer kind of just sends a magical jolt in her, I guess, or well, who is possessing her. There's more emphasis on that later on, I think in chapter 13 maybe, where we basically Sari is unloading everything. If we didn't know what was going on with Sari, it is all laid plainly on the table for us at that point. And so we know this word is powerful to her, or him, or it, I guess. And they continue the road work. So planning mines ain't going to be easy, Fiddler had pointed out. So he might do it right in front of everyone's nose. Road repair. Whiskey Jack shook his head. True to Fiddler's prediction, no one had yet questioned them. They continued ripping up the street and replacing the old cobbles with Moranth munitions encased in a fire-hardened clay. Was everything going to be so easy? I doubt it. I doubt it. But yeah, so we find out that the Moranth bestowed upon them technology to create these munitions, these bombs, and they're planting them under this cobbled road. And Whiskey Jack is still questioning Sari. Because we've had a few scenes like this where everyone's like, man, it's weird she can fish. Man, it's weird she's like this. And there's something about her, right? Her eyes are her old. But what had pulled a 17-year-old girl into the world of war, he couldn't understand it. He couldn't get past her youthfulness, couldn't see beyond to the cold, murderous killer behind those dead eyes, as much as he told his squad. So, and in seeing her here, he is questioning himself, feeling the weight on his shoulders as a commander and a person. Whiskey Jack, to me, yes, is the most convincing character we are finally given someone to empathize with. So, like I said, throughout other chapters, or throughout subsequent chapters that I'm going to talk about in this video, we get even more, right? We find the first sword that he got from his first battle, and he's thinking about it, his armor, and so on and so forth. And he constantly is thinking about his past, the stuff he's gone through, and just the weight of everything on his shoulders. And he calls them his friends, his family, and he wants to know how his actions and his commands are going to affect those people. And again, that is character building, right? We don't see that really with anyone else in this entire book so far. So when he had looked upon Saryat Greydog, the source of his horror lay in the unveiling of what he was becoming, a killer stripped of remorse, armored in the cold iron of inhumanity, freed from the necessity to ask questions, to seek answers, to fashion a reasonable life, like an island in a sea of slaughter. In the empty eyes of this child, he had seen the withering of his own soul. The reflection had been unblemished, with no imperfections to challenge the truth of what he saw. And yet his friends might die. There he'd finally called them what they were, and the friends of others might die. And I think that's a powerful thing for a commander to say about their troops, because, you know, it should be all business, right? It should be just follow orders, and there's collateral damage, and that's that. But you can see here that that line is starting to blur, and he's starting to notice it. Not only that his friends might die, with a capital F, right? He called them his friends, not just his quote-unquote co-workers or comrades, right? They are his friends. They have passed that line. And not only that, but the friends of others might die, right? The family and friends of others. So again, this is great character work. It's really unfortunate because I can see, like I said, Steven Erikson has the chops to make interesting characters. Maybe he just identified with Whiskey Jack more. Maybe it was easier. It just came easier to him. I don't know what it is, but at the very least, I can say that I feel like Whiskey Jack is a fleshed out character with trauma, with desires, with stakes, with reservations, right? He's always having a dilemma of something. And I feel like it's just, we don't see that much in any other character. But then he sees Baruch in the window with red hands. And this is the same timeline I made note of. At least I hope so, unless I'm completely confused at this point. We're given the specifics of the kinds of mines they're using to bring down the buildings. We decided on 7 mines, Fiddler said. 4 sparkers, 2 flamers, and 1 cusser. Will that bring down some of these buildings? Whiskey Jack asked, avoiding Mallet's eyes. And so I love the use of red in the scene I made note of, from the hands on Baruch, a mirrored scene from previously, to Whiskey Jack biting the inside of his mouth and spitting it, to the maps circled in red. So we have Baruch's hands up in the window. We have Whiskey Jack literally biting. It's a metaphor for the shit he's going through. He bites the inside of his cheek. He spits out the blood. And then also the red circled on the map that they are looking at on this wagon. So again, beautiful stuff. I just wish it was everywhere. I wish it was just in every character, in every scene, or at least, distributed throughout this book, because this is why I read. This is what interests me, right? It's not the plot. It's not the cool fight scenes. Those are great, right? But if you don't have this, nothing else matters. And we see that very clearly later on when we see the rooftop battle. So scene 4 brings us to Crocus. The Crocus Younghand strode south on Tralit's Walk. The first signs of the upcoming Getaron fate had appeared. Dyed banners hung from clotheslines over the street, painted flowers and strips of bark-framed doorways and bushels of dried weeds had been tacked to walls at every crossing. And Crocus is troubled by this celebration now, is distracting everyone from the threat of the Malazan Empire, which, is definitely looming. And we learn that Mammoth's flying monkey is named Moby, like the artist, or like the whale, I guess. Mammoth is thrilled at Crocus' interest in his work, the history of Darujhistan, though he doesn't despise him for being a thief. So it's an interesting turn of events here, and I'm kind of curious where it's going, I guess, even though I may never get there. But yeah, they have a little chat. Mammoth brings up his work, and he's like, wow, you give a shit about my work. And then he starts talking to him about, thievery, and like, yeah, I know what you got to do. I know you got to do what you got to do. But that leads into, Crocus being interested in educating himself, perhaps. But this highlight here, I found was funny, and there's a couple of them actually in these chapters. So I said I can relate when Crocus, when his uncle starts throwing his historical facts at him. So Mamet cupped his hands around his teacup. Darujhistan was born on a rumor. Among the indigenous Gorobi Hills survived the legend of the Jagut's barrow lay somewhere in the hills. Now the Jagut was possessors of great magic. Creators of the secret warrens and items of power. Over time, the Gorobi legends made its way beyond the hills into the Genabakan north and the Caitlin south. The kingdom since crumbled, blah, 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 blah. Entire tribes and so on and so forth. And so this, to me, I kept wondering, is Erikson kind of poking fun at himself? And I make note of that specifically later on with another passage we'll get to. But it's kind of funny because just there's all this historical stuff, and understandably so, that this reflects his uncle Mamet's passion, right, with history and information and so on and so forth. So I don't think it's unwarranted at all, but it would have been nice to have Crocus react to a degree, I think. And we are definitely familiar with that barrow as in previous chapters. So scene 5, Sari is trailing Krup, and she literally tells us everything in case you weren't sure. So this is what I'm talking about, where if you as a reader aren't quite sure what's going on with Sari and Cotillion, then here it is. I am Cotillion, she heard herself murmur, patron of assassins, known to all the rope of shadow. The weeping grew fainter. The seer is dead. A part of her mind cried out at that, while another asked, what seer? I am within, yet apart. I stand at Shadowthrone's side, and he is named Amanus, and he is the Lord of Shadows. I am here as the hand of death. Sari smiled and nodded to herself, once again in control. Whatever had challenged that was gone. So it's a little bit hilarious. It's a little bit on the nose. Well, it's not a little bit. It's very much on the nose that he would have he being Erikson would have a character literally speak aloud all of this information from the very character who is being possessed in this passage. But I thought that was kind of funny. But I don't know. Maybe maybe that's something from his editor. Like, look, I mean, your stuff's confusing, man. You need to just spell it out. And he literally spelled it out. So scene 6, we have Krupa waving his arms around magically while stealing food, then heads into the Phoenix Inn. So we notice that a lot of people start heading into this Phoenix Inn. They're meeting up like we've done in previous chapters. And Sari, she recognized Krupa as an adept. That was something that threw me off a little bit. We know Krupa is a strange magical fellow, but I did not know he was an adept. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. And she tries to go into the inn, is stopped by a thug outside accusing her of following Krupa, and he tries to take her into the alley, and she throws a dagger in his eye. The woman leaned close, her breath a mist of beer, and she whispered, you get in trouble. You just call for Rilta and Mies. That's us, right? And so that's after Sari goes into the inn, and she is told she will be protected by this woman. And then in scene 8, Crocus spots Sari. So I guess one thing, this actually is very similar to some of the original chapters we have in Darujhistan, where it's just this back and forth, right? So one character will go somewhere, the other character will see that character go somewhere, and then we pick up and go off on their little adventure or their short scene. And then because they all congregate again in this inn. So Sari orders a drink, and people see that Chert has been killed. He's the man who tried to get her into the alleyway. And Crocus notices her, checks her out, goes to pay for his drink, and drops the coin, which keeps spinning, Opon's coin of chance. And she has found Opon's man, and Krupa is connected. So she has found the coin bearer. And she, just like Whiskey Jack asks earlier about putting these munitions in the street, is this all too easy? Is it too easy? So scene 10, we find Kalam emerge from Quip's bar just as a local greyface brought his burning pitch stick to a nearby gaslight, having moments earlier opened the copper valve. And then he and Quickben are looking for an assassin per Whiskey Jack's plan, and they do bring up the eel, which we remember from previous chapters, who we briefly, I almost said that again, Quickben's plan. Okay, so, right. So we're to do it this way because it's the only way left to us. Hairlock's insanity has become a liability, but we can use him still. One last time. Power draws power, and with luck, Hairlock's demise will do just that. The more ascendants we can lure into the fray, the better. Quickben shook his head. No, I want you right where you are for this one. If I don't come back, take my body and burn it down to ash. Scatter the ash to the four winds, and curse my name with all your heart. Kalam was silent. Then he asked in a growl, how long do I wait? Dawn. Quickben replied. You understand, I would only ask this of my closest friend. I understand. Now get on with it, damn it. Then that leads us to scene 11. A pale Murillo returned to the table and sat down. Someone's disposing of the body, he said, and shook his head. Whoever killed Chert was a professional with a real nasty streak, right through the eye. And then he and Krupa are arguing about his worth, and we know that Crocus saw her bloody dagger. And the boys are back. I just made that note because they're all back at the inn, congregating again. So scene 12 brings us to, within the Warren of Chaos, Quick Ben knew of the innumerable shifting pathways that led to doors, though called them doors, they were only in fact barriers created where Warrens touched a calcretion of energy as solid as basalt. Chaos touched on all realms with gnarled fingertips, bleeding power. The doors hardened, wounds in the flesh of other worlds, other avenues of magic. And he's traveling down the twisting paths of a warren. He comes to a door, and I am direction, he said quietly. He leaned against the barrier. I am the power of will in a place that respects this, and only this. He leaned harder. I am the warren's touch. To chaos, nothing is immune. Nowhere is immune. He felt the door begin to yield. He lashed out, one hand behind him, fending off a growing pressure. Only I shall pass, he hissed. Abruptly, with strange thumping sound, he slipped through, energy flaring around his body. And Quick Ben sat down, folding his legs and clasping his hands in his lap. Shadow Throne, he said. Lord of Shadows, I am come to your realm. Will you receive my presence as befits a peaceful visitor? And from the hills came an answer, the howling of hounds. We know that later on he encounters these hounds. So that brings us to chapter 12, scene 1, and we are with Krupa and Mammoth Study. And the calling down to earth the god was crippled and so chained in its place. In the calling down, many lands were sundered by God's fists, and things were born and things were released. Chained and crippled was this god. And Krupa is praying for brevity, and I feel the same way. Is this Erikson's poking fun at himself? Again, this is very similar how I felt with the Crocus scene earlier with Uncle Mammoth. It's actually spelled out for us here. The crippled god bred caution, but not well enough, for the powers of the earth came to it in the end. Chained was the crippled god, and so the chain was destroyed. And upon this barren plain that imprisoned the crippled god, many gathered to the deed. Hood, grey wanderer of death, was among the gathering, as was Decembre, the Hood's warrior, though it was here and in the same time that Decembre shattered the bonds Hood held upon him. Also among the gathering were, and he finally finds the names he was seeking. And among those that came from the vaulted heavens of Sildar, the Tistandi, dwellers of darkness, in the place before light, black dragons numbering 5, and in their league sailed Redwing Selana to the dwelling among the Tistandi and the Fang of darkness, ascending from the vaulted heavens in silver. A lot of names, a lot of stuff going on, big info dump. We find out it's called Aludart's Realm Compendium he is reading. And Mammoth inquires of Crocus specifically if he has been acting odd and that he's been interested in formal education. So again, he's talking about the fact that, oh, my thieving nephew's actually, he wants to better himself, right? This is a familiar conversation I'm sure a lot of you out there have had with parents or grandparents or somebody like that. And Krupa notices magic in Mammoth's eyes, and he stares in the middle distance before Mammoth excuses him. Krupa recounts sorry and that she must be involved somehow. Which brings us to scene 2 and our favorite giant raven thing. Crone is waiting for Baruch impatiently. She tells him of Herlock's exploits, and the two powers are converging on the Garobi Hills, and Anamander Rake wants to know why. And a Jagut tyrant imprisoned by the Jagut themselves, generations of scholars and sorcerers have sought to find this barrow. None managed to discover it even as much as a clue. Baruch looked up, his expression lined with worry. I know of one man here in Darujistan who has gathered all the available knowledge concerning this burial place. I must confer with him. I can give your lord this, however. There lies a standing stone in the Gadrobi Hills. I know its location precisely. It is almost invisible. Only its weathered top breaks the ground, perhaps a hand's span in height. The remaining 20 feet are beneath the earth. You will see it excavated around, all fruitless. For while the stone marks the beginning point, it is not the entrance to the barrow. And then Baruch insists that the entrance must remain secret until he confer with his individual. Whatever lies inside the barrow could destroy a city, we are noting, or it's noted. Two powers are seeking this. That brings us to scene 2. And Quick Ben finds a hound. So he heard the hounds. They were what answered him in the previous chapter, and now they're finally here. So he bows. You are the hound called Blind, he said, mate to Baron and mother of Gear. I come seeking no harm. I would speak with your master. And the two other hounds, Bran and Shan, show up. Then Doan, finally rising up before him, a Shadowkeep, a fracture of black glass. There's no doors, no gate, no windows. but then they just walk right through the wall. And Quickben stops before the dais. He bowed. I was once an acolyte within your temple, Lord. He says he'll give Hairlock to Shadowbane and is revealed to be Delat. So there's a little bit of a secret identity, I guess, with Quickben. We do know that all these bridge burners have code names, right, or nicknames, and we find out what his real name is, and it's spelled out completely, I believe, in chapter 13. We'll see. But anyway, Krupa in Barrack's study in scene 3 with a message from the eel. He mopped his brow. Look through the streets to find those you seek. That and no more. Delivered to Krupa by the smallest child he'd ever seen. And then Baruch tells him he must take Murillo, Rallick, and Cole and protect Crocus. Go to the Gadrobi Hills. A small aside about people digging, and Krupa mentions roadwork, which we know are the bridge burners. And Rallick is to kill Crocus if his influence is pushed. So we do know that Crocus, he is the coin bearer. He's a special individual, in addition to a couple of other characters we have here. But even Baruch says he must die. He must die if his allegiance or he gets pulled in one direction, being the direction that they don't want to go in. And so that's interesting, right? We have someone who is very expendable depending on how things go. But that brings us to scene 4. Quickben returns to the mortal realm and discusses he revealed who he was to Shadowbane just as Sari walks into the hut. And this is with Kalam, who's waiting for him. She tells them Whiskey Jack sent her, but they don't believe her. Tells them to go to the Phoenix Inn because we all know that's where they all need to go. Which scene 5 brings us to Rallick. He's spotting a man, which I'm assuming is Kalam, this big burly guy, this assassin going inside the inn. We never got a real physical description that I remember anyway of Kalam, but I'm assuming this is him, and I think it is revealed a little bit later on. And then Ocelot tells him to draw him to Tarlo's warehouse. And scene 6 brings us Crocus on the street, and he's thinking about Sari, and he's on his way to return what he stole from the Diarl maiden, something like that. The woman he is desperately in love with, and there's an interesting scene with her. But that brings us to the end of chapter 12, which brings us to chapter 13. We have Kalam in the Phoenix Inn, and he retreats to a room where he assembles a crossbow. So Quickben also stood wiping his forehead with a sleeve. 2 spells. You'll be able to float, control every descent. The other should give you the ability to see anything magical. Well, almost anything. If there's a high mage kicking around, we're out of luck. And this is reminiscent of what happened before when Crocus was being chased with a floating spell. So, and that's why I say assassins from way back. But anyway, they start tracking Rallick, which brings us to scene 2. Rallick is aware, and that's pretty much all that happens in scene 2. Scene 3, a demon is flying around. And he gets into combat with an assassin, and there's 12 assassins massacring people. So this entire sequence here is just very similar to the old Darugistan roof scene where we had just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth action. So a lot of very short scenes. Kalam finds a female assassin, notices 2 magical booms. Then we're back to Rallick briefly in scene 5. Scene 6, Sari discloses all she's done, garroting the claw, dealing with Perrin. Now she's tracking Crocus. So again, more details. If we didn't get it yet, it's all on the table for us now. She wonders if what the girl used to be had been completely obliterated, and noticed some kind of power when the word seer is uttered. So meaning that Cotillion is thinking about Sari, right? The little girl, the actual little girl, not the vessel, but the girl who's inside, right? Hopefully anyway, still. Which is interesting, right? Because we haven't really talked much about that yet. It's always been experiencing things from the outside. I think these are the very first few, with the exception of when she wasn't possessed, POV chapters or POV scenes with Sari, which is kind of an interesting take finally. But why not? We got a lot of POVs. Why not add one more? So scene 7 is while Crocus is in a room, being the Diarl maiden, she wakes up and instructs him where to put all the things he's stolen. So in their conversation, we learn the name. Her name is Chalice, and thankfully, Crocus' his eyes rolled, because my eyes rolled as well when I read that. And we get Crocus's full name. I don't believe we've ever gotten that so far. So he says, my name, he sighed, defeated, is Crocus Younghand. And you're the daughter of the high-born Darl, who all those suitors are lining up to be introduced to. But one day you'll see me in the line, Chalice, and only you will know where you last saw me. It'll be a formal introduction, and I'll bring a gift, as is correct. He stared at her, horrified by his own words. And yes, I was horrified by his words. Super cringy, but, he's a 17-year-old kid, so I guess it's permissible. And she laughs, right? she is definitely allowed that in this circumstance. And he leaves and he sees Sari in the garden below the room, which brings us to scene 8. Kalam and Quickben on the rooftops. The demon materializes, named Pearl. It's a Korvala demon, which belongs to Tatron apparently. What is your name, wizard? He hesitated, then said, Ben Adefan Dalat. So that's when we get Quickben's full name. You are supposed to be dead, Pearl said. Your name is so marked on the scrolls of those high mages who fell to the Empire in 7 cities. More expositing, more exposition in dialogue, which, you know, I think we're kind of used to at this point. Anyway, scene 9. Rallick, he's musing about Vorkin, the master of assassins who is under the city. If all went as planned, Lady Simtal and those men who'd conspired with her in the betrayal of her husband, Lord Cole, would die. Could that right the wrong? Could it even the scales of retribution? No, but it might return to a man his life and his hope. For himself, Rallick, such gifts had long since been lost, and he was not the kind of man to stir the ashes. No ember survived, no flame could be born anew. Life belonged to other people, and his only claim to it was his power to take him from them, nor would he recognize hope if it came to him. Too much a stranger, too long a ghost. So he runs into Crocus and advises him to stay off the path of assassins of thievery after his own introspection. So again, we are starting to reveal character here, right? And why didn't this happen sooner? That's what I would love to know, because I would be invested with this. I wouldn't want to quit this novel, I think, for the most part, if I just really believed in these characters, if I empathized with them, if I felt with them. I don't care about this plot, right? And I think that's a huge shortcoming for my reading tastes anyway. But finally in scene 10, Anamander Rake, he's on the rooftop, disappointed with the work of his assassins, and he killed a demon with his sword. We didn't really see it. We just see like the aftermath of it, I think. But then scene 11, we're back with Whiskey Jack. He's hanging out with the boys. After a solid day of road work, the Maranthe had given them the technology, which I mentioned before, of the explosives. He's looking at a sword, which he's had since his first battle, and thinking about all he's done and where he's been. So again, more character building with Whiskey Jack, and I think it's great because you need to have these introspective moments with characters. You can't just have action. And I believe with Whiskey Jack and even, you know, Rallick above in the previous scene, we're getting that, right? Erikson is giving us some of that. It's just unfortunate that he hasn't given us more of. So, alas, here we are. And Kalam enters wounded from the battle. Kurlad Galain is brought up by Quickben due to the sorcery he witnessed. So, again, another name that doesn't really mean much at all to me. And then in scene 12, we have Sari. She's still tracking Crocus, feeling the loss of the felled demon. That is when she decides she must kill Crocus. He's a big deal. She must definitely rid the world of him. Scene 13, Baruch is nursing a magical migraine from the demon summoning when Rake shows up. They chat about the guild, the demon unleashed by Quickben. And scene 14, Krupa is back with a cruel Eldering one. So we begin where we were begun. The passing of a great wagon or some such thing, he replied with a frown. I hear its wheels and its chains and the groaning of slaves. Its name is Dragonpur, Krull said, and it is a sword. Krupa's frown deepened. How can a wagon and slaves be a sword? Forged in darkness, it chains souls to the world that existed before the coming of light. Krupa, its wielder, is among you. And Krupa's reminded of the half-dragon knight, pulled from his fun deck of dragons. And Krull also warns him to protect the corn bearer. He's a corn bearer. The coin bearer Crocus. So that ends Gardens of the Moon. Book 4 Assassins, and like I said, this is where I'm going to kind of throw in the towel, everybody. I'm going to make a separate video of all my thought processes, why I stopped this thing. It's really tough for me because these videos, they get a lot of views, meaning there's engagement there. There's people who enjoy these things, but I feel like no one's reading along with me. It's a lot of people who have already read the books, which is cool, right? It's totally cool. I appreciate the knowledge and the sharing of knowledge and just revisiting something like this that was very special to you out there. But everybody on my Discord has stopped reading it, with the exception of one person who I was chatting with tonight. And I said, man, I'm just not feeling this book anymore. I've said it before, and then I gave it sort of a second chance, and I felt like it really didn't win me back, unfortunately. And so I'm going to throw in the towel, call it, unless, like I said, viewers out there, if you would like me to see this thing all the way through, I'm more than happy to, because if there is a viewership, I will give you something. I will give you that. I'm 60% in, so I'm just barely over halfway. But yeah, if you feel passionately about me continuing, let me know in the comments below. And some books just aren't for everybody. Like I said, I will create a separate video with my detailed thoughts about why I quit and why it's okay. It's okay. I've done a few videos like that. So thanks for hanging out with me. I know these are long ones and I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. But like I said, stick around. More books to come. This is not the last one. But if you came here exclusively for Gardens of the Moon and wish to unsubscribe, you are welcome to do so. I totally understand. But thanks for sticking with me so far, and I will see you in the next video.